we are going to start our session. Please pay attention. Please pay attention. We are going to start the session. Okay. So this session will be taken by Dr. Ankush Vasisht. He is assistant professor in the Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering, IIIT Kota. And he is very good with the hardware components. He is good with wire connections. He can work with wires, and he has actually did his PhD on real hardware experiments, field test. He has done a lot of field testing. So just for the brief introduction about him, uh, he received his BTech from LNMIT Jaipur and MTech from MNIT Jaipur, and then he received his PhD in Electrical and Electronics Engineering from Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. Currently, he is working as assistant professor in IIIT Kota, and his research interest includes channel characterization and modeling, indoor wireless positioning and navigation system, and embedded systems for IoT. During his doctoral studies, he has designed and developed a low-cost wireless indoor positioning system using ultra-wide band impulse radio technology. He was associated to Delta NTU Corporate Laboratory for cyber physical systems for almost 5 years. So he has, pretty good experience working on embedded systems and for different applications like indoor navigation and positioning. So during his stay in Singapore, he was associated with a Delta NTU corporate laboratory for cyber physical systems. He was also awarded a Best Poster Award for his work on cognitive radio in IEEE ANTS. He is actively involved in conducting many hardware workshops for students in Singapore, especially. He was an active member of IEEE Singapore section and had served as a vice chair of IEEE Young Professional Singapore section. So apart from this brief introduction, he has achieved a lot of other milestones. But without considering all his achievements, I would like to hand over to Dr. Ankush Vasisht to start the session with some practical demonstration.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Dr. Amit Kumar, for this kind introduction. I don't know if I deserve this or not, but thank you so much. And am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks a lot, sir, for the invitation to this ATAL sponsored faculty development program. And thank you so much for the kind introduction. So Dr. Amit is my colleague at IIIT Kota, and we have been conducting a lot of courses and a lot of workshops together at IIIT Kota. So he's really kind enough to invite me for this talk. So I really want to thank and I want to pay gratitude to Dr. Amit Kumar for organizing such a nice workshop, nice faculty development program, as well as inviting me for that. Apart from it, I would also like to thank all the participants who have given their precious time out of their busy schedule on this on a holiday on Saturday. So I think without wasting much time, let's begin what we have today. So this will be a lab session. Basically, I'll try to introduce you uh, uh, some of the hardware. Basically, right? I'm not sure if you all will be having those hardware, but I'll try to demonstrate you some of the hardware from the point of view of robotics, right? So let me just share my screen uh, quickly, and let's begin the session. Sir, can you just confirm if my screen is visible?
Visual, visual, sir.
Visible? Okay.
Yes, sir, visible.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. So let me just adjust the things out here. Okay. Okay. Uh, so let's begin the session now, and so it will be a lab session. So it was scheduled from 2:30 to 4:30, but somehow due to some emergency, the session was shifted at this hour. So we'll try to make it an interactive session, as well as we'll try to learn how we can actually uh, connect devices to the computer. When I'm saying connecting devices to the computer, it means, let's say we have a robot, and we have devices on top of that robot, and we want to have a communication or maybe connection between the robot, that might be a wireless or wired thing. And how do we control that robot from a computer? So that's what we mean, a session on connecting devices to a computer, right? So let me quickly begin with by a video of approximately 2 minutes. Let me just show you some video so that you will get some insights as to what we are going to do in this uh, session of 2 hours. So let me just quickly show you a video. Okay. Yeah, just give me a moment. Let me just quickly start a video for you all. Yeah, just a second. Sir, can you see the video?
Yes, sir.
Can we see the video? Okay,
Yes.
okay, okay. Yeah, just a confirmation. I'm actually handling two screens, so I was just uh, confused. Okay. Okay, so that was a short video. So the reason for having this video, I'll quickly explain you the reason for having this video. So As you all can see, we have the same robot displayed on the screen. So can anybody just let me try to make this session a bit interactive. So can anybody just let me know what are the things being used, technical things being used in this robot? Can anybody just tell me? I mean, any if anybody has any idea, can anybody just come up
Through
and
Arduino. Through Arduino, sir.
okay, Arduino, right? So one question, one answer is Arduino, right? So we are using Arduino board. Okay, so any other suggestions or any other things which you can uh, think of? Yeah, servo motors, definitely servo motors we have to control the wheels and all. Yeah, definitely, right? Servo motor sensors, definitely we have some what is called as sensors. So can you tell me the name of few sensors which are there in this robot? Any sensors which you can say? Driver, ultrasonic, absolutely correct, sir. Ultrasonic sensor, line follower, definitely ultrasonic sensor and all. Okay, and of course for camera also, there is a camera also inbuilt. We have is embedded on this particularly robot. What was shown in a video, right? So can you also tell me who is controlling all these sensors? Yeah,
Microcontroller.
yeah, microcontroller. So I mean, what type of microcontroller? I mean, can anybody just judge? I mean, from the video, can anybody just recall what kind of microcontroller was there or what was there on that which is controlling everything? Broadcom. Okay, Broadcom. Yeah. So basically the device what is embedded, what is there on top of it is this. I don't know if you guys have seen this or not. So can you tell me what is this device all about? So this is a Raspberry Pi. Let me just tell you. So this is a Raspberry Pi board. So if you can see on top of this, if you can see here in this screen, just take a pen. So if you see here, so there is a Raspberry Pi board. This is a Raspberry Pi board. So this is exactly it looks like this. So if you see this, this is how it looks like. So this is a mini computer basically, which is actually embedded on top of this robot, and which is basically controlling the ultrasonic sensors, the cameras, and definitely the actuators, and definitely those motion of the wheels and all. So this is being controlled by all these things. I mean, this is the processor there, right? So let me just tell you what does this processor look like. The size of this processor is just a size of a credit card or a debit card, whatever card you can say, right? So it's almost like this. So you see, this is a very small computer which is embedded on top of it. So that's what we will try to learn today, that how to control the sensors which are available on this robot, like ultrasonic sensors or maybe the cameras, how we can control that with the help of this Raspberry Pi board, right? And how we can transmit this information onto our laptop or computer or desktop, whatever, right? So that's what is the motivation behind this video. So we have seen a robot which is using a Raspberry Pi as a controlling device, and we have few sensors. So let us try to understand this from the point of view or from the perspective of an internet of things, right? So what are the things here, what are the things here in this particular robot, right? So definitely these are some of the applications where we can actually apply internet of things. So a lot of things, a lot of applications are there, like agriculture, energy consumption. However, for the time being, we are just focused on a robotic application. So definitely there are a lot of robotic applications where we can actually deploy internet of things, or we can actually apply this concept of internet of things. So let me just try quickly explain you what do we mean by internet of things, right? And we'll understand from the point of view of the video what we have just now saw, right? Can I ask a question? Yes, Mrityunjay sir, yes, you can please. Once again, name. Okay, once again, name. Do you mean this one, sir? This board? Are you talking of this board? Yes, this is basically a sir Raspberry Pi. I'll tell you the name. I'll tell you the name. So it will come in the slide. It will come in the coming slide. So I think I was quick in showing you this board, but it will come, and the name and all, everything will be there, and details will also be available in the board there, right? So what I'm trying to say right now is, we have seen a video. Let's try to observe that video from the point of view of internet of things. What are the basic components involved in internet of things, and how those components are actually applied to an actual robot, considering the application as a robotic application for this particular faculty development program, right? So so what is internet of things, right? So what are the components involved in internet of things? So this is a ladder which we go from top to bottom, maybe, right? So as you have already correctly pointed out that okay, so as you have already correctly pointed out that we have sensors in this robot. So this is a video what we have just now we have seen. So this was the robot which was there in the video, right? So as you have correctly pointed out that there are few sensors. So what are those sensors? Here we can see there are some sensors, right? So here we can see we have some sensors, right? So ultrasonic, somebody rightly pointed out that there are ultrasonic sensors. We'll see what is ultrasonic sensor and how we can actually use that. So you are absolutely correct, sir. So this is ultrasonic sensor basically, right? So ultrasonic sensor, and definitely there is a camera also. So here you can see a camera, right? So camera is also considered as a sensor, right? So you see the first thing which is mapped to this video or this robot is a sensor. Am I clear here? So this is what we have, right? So we have in IoT, what we have, the first component is sensors, are the sensors which will actually collect information for us, and the information can be in the form of anything. For the time being we are using a camera sensor, as and we are also using an ultrasonic sensor. We have different categories of sensors. I don't know if I have a lot of sensors available with me. So this is another type of sensor, just wanted to show you. And ultrasonic sensor looks something like this. It looks something like this. I'm sure it is visible to you all, right? So this type of sensor is available, is actually there on this robot. You can see here, right? So this sensor is ultrasonic sensor. You can see here. This is what is there on top of this robot, right? Okay, so considering this fact that we have a sensors at the top of this layer of IoT, Internet of Things. So what is the second layer? So we have a local processing unit and local storage, right? So what is that we is by the way, let me first go to the slide where I will explain you about these boards actually, right? Why I wanted to explain you that, because there was a question that what is this board all about, right? So basically these are some of the boards. So this is a uh, beagle bone. This is a beagle bone black, and this is a Raspberry Pi, and there is some another processing board which is by Intel Edison board, right? So this is a board which we are going to use. So this is a Raspberry Pi. Let me just tell you, because I'll take this name again and again, right? And this is a beagle bone. This is a beagle bone black. These all are processing units, right? And it definitely it is behaving like a computer. I'll show you how it is behaving like a computer. Yeah, and Galileo, there are a lot of boards, sir. There are a lot of boards which you can actually use, right? A lot of small boards, a lot of powerful boards. So in this particular workshop, or in this particular session, we are going to use this Raspberry Pi as a board, right? So that's what we will be going to use. And definitely it is used here also. So this is a Raspberry Pi. So this is a Raspberry Pi board, right? Okay. So considering this ladder of IoT, Internet of Things, so we have at the first step, we have what is referred to as a sensors. And then we have a local processing and local storage, right? So what is the local processing and local storage in this application of my robot? This Raspberry Pi board, right? So this Raspberry Pi board has a local processing unit, which is, as you correctly pointed out, a Broadcom processor, and definitely it also has a local storage. So local storage right now in my boards is 32 GB. You can extend because there is a slot. There is a you can actually put this micro card, micro SD card you can put here, right? So right now I have put a 32 GB micro SD card in this particular BeagleBone Black. Sorry, Raspberry Pi, right? So this is a local processing unit for this particular robot or for this particular application, right? What is the local processing unit? Local processing unit is a Raspberry Pi. Correct. Of course, it has a local storage also. So we have a local storage also. So why we are referring it as a local storage? Because it is at a local, it is at a remote location. It is at that location where my device is, right? Along with the sensors, basically, right? So local processing is a Raspberry Pi, and on top of Raspberry Pi, we have a storage. That's why we have referred to as a local storage, right? And then definitely this Raspberry Pi has lot of network connectivity. We have a Bluetooth on top of it, we have a Wi-Fi on top of it, and we have a Ethernet cable also on top of it, right? So you can definitely connect this to internet, right? And once this is connected to internet, we can have a cloud processing and cloud storage. You all know that, right? We can send this data. We can send this data collected from this sensor, which is nothing. In this case, in the case of this robot, we have a ultrasonic sensor and a camera sensor. This data, or maybe definitely there are a lot of sensors, because we need to collect control the wheels and all, but I will be focusing on ultrasonic sensor and camera sensor for the time being in this particular session, right? So this data will be communicated over to the Raspberry Pi, either you can store this data at that local storage. If you want to process at that particular local storage, you can process the data at local storage also, or if you want to process that data over to the cloud, you can also process that data over to the cloud, right? So let's say, if so there might be a question, why do we need local storage, how we can actually process, why do we need a processing at local storage? So there are a lot of different variants of environment, right? Let's say if my environment requires that I just wanted to process the data, and the data is very very small, if my device can actually cater to that data, right, we will actually process it at the local site, right? So we'll actually store the data, and we'll process the data at the local at this particular location. Otherwise, we'll send the data over to the network, over to the internet, and then we can have a cloud processing, right? And if you want to see this data from anywhere across the globe, right, you can see that data based on that cloud connectivity or whatever, right? So I think this overall idea of that video and this robot, and how does this IoT thing work, so these are the fundamental basic building blocks of IoT. Of course, we are not going to go into the details. There are a lot of details behind these functional blocks of an IoT, but at a very high level, what I wanted to show you is, considering any application, these are the steps which will be followed in any IoT based system, Internet of Things based system, right? Per se, here we have the application of a robot, right? As any question here for the time being? If not, then let me quickly go ahead, and let me quickly show you the demonstration, how we can actually use whatever is being embedded on this robot, and I'll show you in this demo today. So again, you have another type of, you see, this is another camera basically, right? So since the camera was not visible in this robot, I am just trying to show you a camera here on this robot. So this camera is connected to a Raspberry Pi board, and this camera will collect information. I'll explain you in the subsequent slides, in the subsequent demonstration, how you can do that. So is this idea clear, what we are trying to do, or what we are trying to achieve? So what we are trying to achieve is, we'll try to achieve this ladder we'll try to achieve this ladder. So the ladder you can see here, this ladder we'll try to achieve. We'll try to achieve this ladder up till here. I'll not go to the cloud processing, but yeah, up till here we'll see how we can achieve these things. So this is the basic objective and motivation of this workshop. And then definitely you can use that for different application. Not robotics, you can use that for different application. It will be a very general idea, or a general doings basically, what we will do in this lab, right? So is this idea clear? Can I just can I quickly stop here at this point? If you have any doubt, any question, what we are going to do, what we are going to learn, so we'll try to go very slow, very simple. And I understand, because you guys don't have the hardware, so it will be difficult to follow, but I have tried to design my slides in such a way that even if you have these slides, you can actually follow step by step, right? So any doubts here, any questions here, what we are doing, what is IoT, what we are trying to achieve here? Okay, anyways, if there are no questions, then let me quickly go to the next slide. Okay, so this is what is the another building blocks, what we have just now shown. So it's a simple uh, diagram. So these are the sensors, definitely what we have. So these are the sensors, and this is a gateway. So what is a gateway? Gateway is nothing but local processing, local storage, network, internet. These all will be actually considered in this block diagram, in this block, right? So definitely, since we are using Raspberry Pi board here, so I'll consider Raspberry Pi as a gateway, or maybe, I mean, it's just a medium. The connection will be, it can follow anything, but we'll use this as a processing unit, and we'll have a gateways there, right? And then the data will be sent over to the cloud, and from cloud you can actually see that data over to a mobile app, or whatever, wherever you want to see, right? So these are some of the sensors. Just wanted to show you. because this is the first stage of any IoT system. So we have a lot of sensors available in the market, commercially off the shelf sensors for different tasks. In this particular workshop, we are going to use ultrasonic sensor, and we are going to use a camera, and we will connect it using Raspberry Pi board, right? So these are some of the sensors which I don't want to go into the detail, and these are some of the local processing and local storage devices which are available in the market. Apart from these, there are a lot of, as you correctly pointed out, there are Arduino board also, and there are a lot of boards which are available in the market. You can try playing around with them, and whatever suits you best, you can actually try with that. So in this session, we will be using BeagleBone Raspberry Pi, and apart from it, we also have one more very small microcontroller, which is actually this board. You can see this. The size of this board is just less than my finger. You can see it's very small board, right? So it's a Node MCU. It's a ESP8266. I don't know if you guys have worked on it or not, but it's a very cheap. I mean, it's somewhere around 350 bucks, 350 rupees. You can just have it. You can just try it. I'll show you the demo. You can actually run Python on top of it. It has a Wi-Fi board. It has a Bluetooth, and it has a lot of functionalities. It has SPI I2C communication. We have a lot of communicating interfaces with just a small board, right? So I'll show you how we can actually use this and how we can use a Raspberry Pi. So these are the two boards of interest in this particular session, right? So these are the two boards which I'll try to, if time allows me, I'll try to show you these two things in this particular workshop, right? Anyways, let's focus on one by one. Let's focus on building. Okay, so this is the objective of my session, of this lab session. What we will be covering in 1.5 hours or 2 hours now. So we'll see how to get start with the Raspberry Pi board. I have shown you a Raspberry Pi board. So this is how it looks like. So this is a Raspberry Pi board. How to get start with this, right? So by the way, this is a computer in overall sense. If you really don't have a computer, you can use for very small purposes like watching videos. You can also, since all of you might be a faculty, you can also suggest. There are a lot of complaints from the students that we are actually at a place, or we cannot afford laptop, or we, so you can actually suggest this. I have been using this as a computer for watching at least videos. You can actually surf on internet. So this is one of the very great board which is available in the market, right? So we'll see how to get start with this Raspberry Pi. I'll show you how it looks like on the screen. It's a Unix based system. I hope you understand what is Unix and what is, I mean, what are Windows and what are the differences between those things. So it's a Unix based system. So you can just plug and you can just start your basic processing on top of it, right? So apart from it, what we are going to learn is interfacing Raspberry Pi with Matlab. We'll see how we can actually collect the images from this board, right? So we'll see how we can actually collect, as was there in the robot. So two functionalities of the robot we'll try to understand. One is the ultrasonic sensor, and second is we'll try to see how we can actually capture the video and how to process that video. We'll see how to detect faces on top of it, on top of that video. So these are the two functionalities which we are going to see in this session. So interfacing Raspberry Pi with Matlab, and then interfacing sensor with ESP8266, that is a Node MCU using MicroPython. So we'll see how we can actually embed MicroPython on top of this board, which is this ESP8266, as you can also see in the slide. And this is a hardware which is actually, which looks like this, right? So these are the boards which we'll try to interface with the help of a laptop. With the help of a laptop and desktop, we'll see. And let me quickly go and let me try to explain each step, right? So first, what we are going to take is getting started with the Raspberry Pi. So this is the first objective. Okay, so what are the hardware and software components we require during this lab session? Although I understand we are actually doing this at a remotely, so it don't give that much feeling that you get while you actually connect the hardware, right? But definitely you can follow the slides and you can actually start building your own system. At least you will get some insight as to these are the boards and these are the sensors and this is how we can actually see on top of the laptop. This is how we can actually connect these type of boards to our devices or our robots, right? So what do we need for that? These are the very basic components. We all know Raspberry Pi board. So the cost of this board is somewhere around 3,000 to 4,000, somewhere between 3,000 to 4,000. If you just want to go for the very basic board, it will be somewhere between 2,500 to 4,000 INR, right? and definitely you require a laptop for initial processing. And definitely, even if you don't have a laptop, you can actually, you just require a screen in order to connect this board, this Raspberry Pi. You just need a screen. If you have a screen, that will also suffice. You don't need any laptop for that, right? The laptop I'm using because it is convenient to have it on a laptop, right? And then definitely you need a power adapter, you need a micro SD card. Okay, so why do we need a micro SD card? So you see, this is the board, right? So you can see the slot here behind this slot. So behind this board, you can actually put a micro SD card. So this is a 32 GB micro SD card, if I can actually correctly show you. So I hope you are actually able to see the micro SD card here. So this is a micro SD card. So what I'm going to do with this micro SD card is I'm going to install my operating system on top of this micro SD card, and then I'll actually use this board. So the operating system which is installed in this micro SD card is a Ubuntu, right? This is a Debian version of Ubuntu basically. So I'm going to use a Unix based system. So this is a Unix based system. So that's why we require a micro SD card. Of course, we need a card reader because we need to burn the image on that micro SD card, right? Definitely, right? So how do we actually install anything on this? So I'll download the image of operating system, and I'll burn that image on this micro SD card in order to operate this board. The first and the foremost step is, if I don't have anything, any micro SD card as is seen in this board, see there is no micro SD card and there is a micro SD card, you can see, right? This board is a without micro SD card, and this is with micro SD card. So you need a card reader to actually burn the image of your operating system on this micro SD card, right? And then only you can actually make use of this Raspberry Pi board, right? Okay, so let me quickly go back and let me quickly show you what is that we are discussing, why we are discussing. So this is the robot. This was the video. This was the video what we have seen, and this was the robot which was there in the video, and this is the device on top of this robot. This is the device. This is called as a Raspberry Pi, and we are going to see how to operate this Raspberry Pi and how to see and how to visualize this Raspberry Pi board. So this is the first objective of our session, right? So that's what we are trying to learn in this particular session, in this particular lab session. So okay, so these are the components. Of course, we need a mini USB cable in order to connect this device. Okay, so let me go ahead and let me show you some of the properties so that you get the idea of how powerful this board is, what we are going to use. We are going to use a Raspberry Pi, and this has a quad core 1.2 gigahertz Broadcom 64-bit CPU. I mean, as you all, I mean, somebody has rightly pointed out in the chat box also, it has a 1 GB of RAM, right? So it has a wireless LAN also, Bluetooth BLE on board. Definitely Ethernet cable we have on top of it. We have a 40 pin extended GPIO. So this is called as a general purpose input output pins. So where are these pins available? So you can see the pins here. So these are the general purpose 40 general purpose input output pins. We'll see how to use these pins. We'll understand from our demonstrations how to actually use these pins, right? And then definitely we have a USB port, we have a video port also, we have a full size HDMI cable also. This is one of the important thing in this board is we have a HDMI cable, you see. So definitely you can connect this to the screens, to your TV devices also in order to see the video. And then you have a camera port. So let me show you the camera port. So this is a camera port basically. Here you can actually put the camera. Let me show you how the camera looks like for this particular Raspberry Pi board. So this is a camera basically, right? And this is a camera port. You can see. Is it visible? Is it visible or is it clear? What I'm trying to explain you. Anybody, any doubt so far? So these are some of the uh, properties uh, or the specifications of this particular board. So I consider this board as a very powerful, matlab, in the sense that uh, you can at least process a lot of things, right? You can actually have a lot of processing at this particular board. That's why I'm just trying to play around with this board and trying to see how things actually can work in this particular board. So this is just a slide to show you what are the specifications of this particular board, right? Anyways, let's uh, go ahead and learn how to configure this Raspberry Pi. I'll see if you can actually try to access this board remotely. Let me just try to see. I don't know whether it will work or not, but we have the options also. So when I'm saying the options, what do I mean? I'm actually running this board here. I'm actually playing around with this board at my location, and you can access this remotely from your location. So there are a lot of softwares available by which you can do. I don't know if it will work or not, but let me try to show you that, right? So okay, so this is how I am going to show you, or my Raspberry Pi board will look like. Okay, so we have a micro SD card, as I've already shown you, and I just need a mini USB power cable. That's it. And I'll just put this on some particular corner, right? So that attached with the sensor. I'll show you. Sensor will be there, right? So what I'm trying to show you now is, let me go back and reiterate. So the sensor will be attached. Okay, let me show you this sensor. So this is a sensor, right? So this is a camera sensor which was there on that robot, right? So you see this. Let me show you the image. So can you see the camera here on the robot below on the screen? So this is the same camera you see. This is the same camera, right? And this is connected to a Raspberry Pi board as is seen in the robot. Robot number 2. Of course, in robot number 1 is also there, but it is not visible. Here is the camera. There's the same camera. You can see the wire going here. So this is the same wire you see. Okay, so this is the same wire. This is how it looks like, right? And then you have a camera here on top of this. So this is a wire, and this is here on this Raspberry Pi board. So this is how it looks like, right? So what we have a sensor as a camera. We have a sensor as a camera. So this is a sensor, and local processing, local storage, and network connectivity, right? So this is what I am going to show you. So what I am doing right now is I am actually connecting a USB cable. It has a Wi-Fi functionality. I'll create a network. I'll create a mesh network locally, with which in that network my device will be connected, and I can actually access this device anywhere. This is what I'm going to do, right? So that's what. So these are the steps or stages what I'm going to demonstrate to you right now, right? So we have a sensor, we have a processing board, we have a network capability on top of this board, and I'll create a mesh network, and based on that mesh network we'll see whether we can see the information or not on my laptop. My laptop is also connected to that mesh network. I'll show you that, right? Let us go one by one. So the first step here is, since I will consider that we are actually, since this is a lab session, so I'll consider that we all are new to this board. So I'll give you a step by step demonstration of how to first access this board, right? And then we will connect a sensor, and then we'll create a network, right? So we'll have a sensor, we'll have a local processing board, and then we'll connect it to the network, and then we'll see some, and then we'll play around and we'll collect in the images and we'll collect snapshots and we'll see whether it is processing or not. Okay, so that's what is the target. So the basis is that video, right? So you have to consider that video in mind, you have to consider this robot in mind, and we are going to play around with these things, right? Okay, so let me go ahead and let me show you. Okay, so this is how our system will look like. A Raspberry Pi with a micro SD. Why do we need a micro SD in this Raspberry Pi? Why do we need this micro SD card? We need a micro SD card in order to. So this is also used as a storage, as well as we are actually using it for installing operating system, right? So we'll install operating system, which is nothing but a Unix based system. This is a Unix based system, and we'll just give it a power. We have to definitely give it a power. So we'll connect it to a power. Of course, we can also give power with the help of a battery. We have a battery banks, so you don't need a plug for this. You just have to give a power with the help of a battery bank, and then I'll just keep it on top of anything, or in one corner I'll keep it, right? So that's how our system will should work. So that's what I'm going to tell you, how you can actually configure this Raspberry Pi and how does it look like when we actually see. Can you use pen drive also for loading operating system? Sir, I think you can use pen drive also for loading this system. Uh, it's just a matter of fact that you have to just then change the devices. I mean, you have to change the settings, right? You have to change the setting. In order to change the setting, you have to go into that board, right? Definitely you can use, but I think initially you have to install it on micro SD card, right? Because why I'm saying that is, by default, uh, the booting system, I mean the booting capacity or the capability is with the help of micro SD card, right? But once you have already used this micro SD card, then maybe you can actually try to change the settings, and then you can use pen drive or USB, whatever you want to use for loading or for booting purpose, right? But by default, we have to have a micro SD card in order to start this system on the very first hand, at the very first hand, right? So that's what is the requirement, right? So that's why we need a micro SD card when you are actually beginning it for the very first time. Yeah, but we have the facility of a pen drive. I mean, you can apply, you can put a pen drive and you can put things with this board, right? Okay, so this is what I wanted to show you now. So yeah, so these are some of the slides. I know we cannot go because you guys don't have the particular hardware, but these are the steps. So what are these steps for? So what is the first step? The first step is to install this micro SD card. So this is the first step, right? So to install this micro SD card, and what we are installing in this micro SD card, we are installing a operating system on this micro SD card. So how do we start installing operating system in this micro SD card? So this is the first step. So we have to download the Raspbian OS operating system image to this OSD card. Okay, so this is very, I mean, it's a basic step. I mean, we don't have to do, we just have to go to the Raspberry Pi site. We have to go to this raspberrypi.org. We have to download the latest operating system image, and we have to burn that image on this SD card, right? How do we burn that image on this SD card? Definitely, there are some steps which is also given in the slides, so that whenever you follow these slides later on with the help of this board, you can step by step do that, right? So I'm just using some Win32 disk imager. So this is a Win32, so that's why we need that card slot in order to burn that image on this micro SD card, right? So we have a disk imager. You can actually download this disk imager from this particular link, and you can install this Raspberry Pi. You can write this Raspbian image to this SD card. ठीक है, basically क्या कर रहे हैं, this is an image and I'm just installing this image on top of this SD card, and these are some of the steps how to do that, right? Okay, since I've already done this step, because it will take a lot of time, because this is, I think, somewhere around I mean, the size of the file is very big, so I am not showing you the demonstration of this, but I'll certainly show you the demonstration after this step, right? So I've already prepared my card because we have a limitation of time. So I've already prepared my card. You see, this card is already being prepared by following this step. You know? So what I'm doing is I'm just installed my Raspbian image in this. So how you have to do, you just have to go to this Raspberry website, download their image, and you have to burn that image on this card, right? For burning this image, you just need a card reader. You just have to plug it in your computer, and you have to use this Windows 32 disk imager, and just copy paste that image what you have downloaded from raspberrypi.org to this card, and this card will actually start operating, right? So yeah. Okay, so once this card is ready, I mean, once you have the image, right? Once you have the image of Ubuntu, I mean, once you have the Unix or a Debian image on this, right? Then you definitely need to require it to connect to a Wi-Fi or any other hotspot, right? So this slide, what is visible to you on your screen is how to set a network, how to configure this Raspberry Pi to be enabled for any networking. Okay, so what I am doing right now is for networking purpose. Let me show you that I'm not connected to the Wi-Fi. Rather, I am actually using this device. This is a Android based handphone, right? This is a simple Android based handphone. I have actually make it, I mean, I'm using a hotspot from this phone. I'm creating a hotspot from this phone, and this Raspberry Pi will be connected to this. Right? Any questions so far? Any doubts to anybody? Okay. Okay, if not, then let's continue. So what I'm doing right now is, so this slide will actually configure the networking. what do I mean when I'm saying networking? This is a hotspot. This is a hotspot phone. This Raspberry Pi will be connected to this hotspot. I'll show you how it is being connected, right? And these are some of the settings. So SSID is the username of my hotspot name. So isme ASDF is the hotspot name, and this is the password. 1234567 is the hotspot password. So this file, these are the settings which I'm doing in this board, right? Once I do these settings in this Raspberry Pi board, it will be connected on booting to this hotspot. I'll show you how it'll connect, right? So basically what I'm doing right now is, what I'm doing here is, let me try to draw the diagram here so that it'll be more clearer. So uh, I'm trying to create a mesh network, right? What I'm doing here is, so let's say this is a Raspberry Pi board. So let's say this is a Raspberry Pi board. This is my R Pi. This is a Raspberry Pi board, and there is a hotspot. There is a hotspot mobile. This is a hotspot, right? Wirelessly, my Raspberry Pi board will be connected to this, right? So this is how I create a mesh network, right? So this is how if there is any other device, let's say if there is any other device also, device two, let's say there is a device two, it will also be connected, right? So this is how we actually create a mesh network, right? So they can actually talk to each other, right? This is what I'm trying to design now in this slide. So these are the devices. Device one is my Raspberry Pi. Device two can be any other device. Device three can also be any other device. And so these devices will talk to each other with the help of this mesh network. So this is what I'm doing, right? And the hotspot, name of the hotspot is ASDF, right? So the Raspberry Pi will talk to this hotspot. And if I want to send this information to my laptop, so this is my laptop. Let's say this is my laptop. Let's say this is my laptop. So my laptop is also connected to this hotspot. So this is the path which this network will follow. So Raspberry Pi to hotspot and to the laptop. So this is how I'm going to do. And this is what is this screen doing. This is what is this slide doing basically, right? So I'm just configuring my Raspberry Pi board. It can be, yeah, it can, yeah, it's a star. Yeah, it's a star rather than mesh. Yeah, it's a star. Yes. So each, but I think in star, each device is also connected, right? If I'm not wrong, if you just follow, I think it's not a star, because in star each device is also connected to something like this, right? It'll follow something like that, right? So every device is connected like this, right? So rather we will call it as a mesh network, right? So yeah, so something like that. So this is what we are going to, yeah, but the idea is we are just rather be it a star or mesh, whatever, I mean, whatever configurations you want to make, what I'm trying to achieve here is, I'm just trying to connect one of the device uh, to my laptop, or maybe to any hotspot or something like that. I just want to make a communication between these two devices, right? So this is what I'm trying to achieve, right? So the purpose of this slide is to install, to configure my Raspberry Pi board for this hotspot network. And the hotspot is actually, I am actually creating a hotspot with the help of my Android phone. So that is the idea, right? So my Raspberry Pi will be connected to that hotspot, and my laptop is also connected to that hotspot, and I'll exchange information wirelessly. So that's the idea, right? So this is the basic configurations for the Raspberry Pi board, right? So how we have to achieve this? See, these are the simple steps. So if you follow these steps, you can actually achieve how to do that. So in the first step, what we have done, we have actually installed, or we have burned the operating system image on this board, on this micro SD card, right? And when you will open this micro SD card, once you have burned the images, there will be a lot of files in this micro SD card. What are those files? Those are the operating system files, right? So you have to actually save these two files, which are shown in your screen. So these are the two files. These are the two files, 1 and 2, right? You just have to save these two, and what is there in this file? This configuration. So these configurations are there in this file. You just have to save these two files, so that whenever you operate this board, you are getting connected to that particular hotspot. Getting the point? So this is the idea, right? Once you are able to log into that board, you can actually connect it to any Wi-Fi network. I'll show you the demonstration how it looks like. Once we actually connect it, once we actually see that on screen, this board, you can actually connect it to any Wi-Fi network, any internet connectivity, right? But for the beginning, in order to see the IP address of this board, I just want to connect it to the hotspot, which is my phone. I can read the IP address on this board. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so these are the two steps in order to configure this Raspberry Pi board, right? Simple configuration is installing operating system, and second is installing networking. I mean, in order to use a networking. Okay, so this is how it looks like configuration. So let me quickly try to connect this Raspberry Pi board. So you see, I'll not connect it anywhere. This is the Raspberry Pi board. So what is the configuration now? My board is ready like this. So I have a image micro SD card, which is nothing but a image of operating system, and this is a Raspberry Pi board, and I have a cable with me. I don't know. Yeah, I have a cable with me. So what I'll do is I'll connect this cable. So this is what, right? So I'll connect this cable and I'll just put it on some corner, and I'll see whether I can read this from my computer or not, right? So this is now network enabled. This Raspberry Pi is will be connected to my hotspot network, right? So let me quickly put that up. Let me quickly. Okay, so now I've just plug in the power cable. You can see there is a light blinking here. Okay, so let me see if I can see this device. So let me now just put it on a table without anything. Let me just wirelessly, everything is uh, uh, connected wirelessly. Now let me just take this phone with me and let me see if I can read the IP address as is seen on this screen. Okay, so you can see you can see the IP address. Let me show you the IP address. Okay, so you see, so you can see the IP address here. I don't know. Yeah, you can see the IP address and the MAC address of this particular Raspberry Pi board. So you can read. I don't know if the digits are reversed, but yeah, I can read out the IP address is somewhere 43.215 192.168.43.215. So this is the IP address of this particular Raspberry Pi, right? See, this is wirelessly connected, so I'm not doing anything. So this is now connected to this hotspot. I can read out the IP address. Why? Because of those two files and the configuration we did in the previous slide. Because of that, it is able to connect to this hotspot. ASDF is the name of this hotspot. You can see this, and this is the IP address, right? So this is how it looks like. I mean, you can connect Raspberry Pi and you can read out the IP address. Okay, so now once we have the IP address, of this board, of this Raspberry Pi, now I know the IP address of this Raspberry Pi. So what is this now? So this is like this. This Raspberry Pi is connected to this hotspot network, right? So that's what I'm just wanted to show. I'm just wanted to make sure that you're at least getting some feeling of this, right? Because when you do it with hand, things become more clearer. But I'm going back to the slides in order to make sure that you are at least understanding, so that if you follow these things in future, maybe you can follow it easily, right? Okay. So now what is that I am going to do? Okay, by the way, let me recap. What I'm doing is I'm actually configuring the Raspberry Pi. Why I'm configuring the Raspberry Pi? In order to use that Raspberry Pi to collect images or to collect data, ultrasonic data, and to process that over to the network. That's why I'm processing, but that's why I'm configuring my Raspberry Pi. So this is the one and the first and the foremost step. If you want to use Raspberry Pi on top of that robot, you have to configure that, right? You have to configure your Raspberry Pi. I'll show you how does this Raspberry Pi look like. We have discussed that there is a Unix based system. This is a Unix operating system on top of this Raspberry Pi. I'll show you now wirelessly how does it look like. You can also access this system from your systems also, since this is network enabled, but I don't know how the speed will work out. But definitely I'll show you from my computer that how does it look like. You can also access this Raspberry Pi remotely. I mean, the Raspberry Pi is here now at my location. You can access it. I'll show you how you can access it from your remote location. Okay, so now what we have is we have an operating system on top of this Raspberry Pi. We have a network enabled on top of this Raspberry Pi. We have an IP address of this Raspberry Pi. Now let's see how this system look like. Okay, so let me try to show you how does this system look like. Okay, so these are the quick slides for your reference in future, how to access this Raspberry Pi board, right? As I already told you that this is a Unix based system, so this will be worked on a shell scripting, right? I mean, not shell, it is like a terminal based system, right? But I'll also show you the screen of this Raspberry Pi. Uh, let me just turn off the presentation, and let me show you how I can actually okay, so this is it. And okay, so let me put it here like this. Okay, so this is the slide what I wanted to show you. So how to see the screen of this Raspberry Pi from my laptop, how to access this Raspberry Pi from my laptop. So there is some software which is called as a putty, Putty, right? So you just have to install this on your system. I mean, it's available at this particular link. So you just have to type Putty, download Putty on Google, and you just have to install this, right? Okay, so how to access my Raspberry Pi? So now I know the IP address of my Raspberry Pi. So what was the IP address of my Raspberry Pi? Uh, let me see it on my mobile. So the IP address was, so you see this is the IP address. This is the IP address of this Raspberry Pi. So now I know the Raspberry Pi IP address. So let me now quickly put down the IP address of my Raspberry Pi: 192.168.43.215. Okay, so the SSH connection, and let me try to see if it is able to connect. Okay, so here is the, so now I am connected to my Raspberry Pi. So this black screen, what you can see is nothing but a Raspberry Pi screen. I'm accessing Raspberry Pi remotely. So my Raspberry Pi is wirelessly connected to that hotspot network, and of course my computer is also connected to that hotspot. I cannot show you that, but yeah, my laptop is also connected to that hotspot network. I don't know if I can show you that. Let me try if I can show you the. Uh, yeah, I cannot show you that. Yeah, but my desktop is also connected to to this hotspot. So right now two devices are being connected. So as I mentioned in the slide previously, right here, this slide. So this is the hotspot network, and this desktop is also connected to this, and the Raspberry Pi is also connected to this particular device, right? So I can see that. Okay, so this is the one thing, and this is how we access. Okay, so now let me give the username and password. So the username and password is very common, I mean, for all the devices. You can also change that later on, but when you start Raspberry Pi for the first time, the username and password is, username is Pi, and the password is Raspberry. Okay, so this is how now you can actually start. So this is the terminal of your uh, uh, Raspberry Pi. As I already mentioned you that this is a Unix based system. So Unix based system is definitely different from Windows system. I'm sure you might have worked on Unix based system as well as on Windows based system. So when you work on a Unix based system, you have to type in the commands. So this is the window where you can actually type in the command. By the way, just to highlight here, this whole black window, what is visible to you on your screen is a Raspberry Pi window. It's not my, it's not my computer, not my laptop. This is a Raspberry Pi. So you can just try to see the slide. I mean, you see there are a lot of files which are available. You have a desktop, you have a desktop for Raspberry Pi, you have a downloads, all those folders which are also available in our laptop, right? So these are some of the folders which are available. By the way, this is all in Raspberry Pi. So now I am accessing Raspberry Pi. Pretty much clear, right? So you can write your Python programming here in this particular shell, and you can start working on it, right? So these are the basic steps how to actually configure Raspberry Pi and how to start using Raspberry Pi for your applications. Per se, for this particular talk, we are using robotics as an application, right? But this is a general method of accessing or configuring your Raspberry Pi. So that's what we have learned so far, right? Anyways, I just want to go quickly on to the next part. Like, what is the next part? So now we have actually seen that I can actually write, you can actually create your Python files and you can do whatever processing you want to do, right? You can now have all the options to change your Raspberry Pi. Now this Raspberry Pi is behaving as a computer. Whatever you know in Unix, you can actually put it here. Whatever you know in Unix, you can actually apply here. The whole uh, building blocks of a Unix is same for this Raspberry Pi. So it's like a computer now. I mean, you know how. I mean, I've already shown you the specifications of this particular board. So this is how you can access. Anyways, for those who want to see the screen, I mean, no, sir, we are not actually satisfied with this black screen. We don't. I mean, few of the people don't like this black screen because it takes a lot of efforts to write those commands and all. So we don't want to see that. Can you show us the normal screen, normal Unix screen or normal operating system screen? What we have, a nice GUI, nice graphical user interface. Okay, so I'll show you that also. How to see that? Let me quickly show you how to see the normal screen of this Raspberry Pi. By the way, let me reiterate here. Now, whatever I'm working on is Raspberry Pi. I'm working inside Raspberry Pi. This black screen is inside Raspberry Pi. Just to highlight this point, right? We should not get confused that whether I'm working on my laptop or not. Yes, I'm using my laptop in order to present this whole thing, but now I'm into my Raspberry Pi, and my Raspberry Pi is connected to the hotspot network, right? This hotspot. So Raspberry Pi is connected to this. My laptop is also connected to this, and how the communication is going on. Laptop is connecting to this hotspot, and this hotspot is connecting to the Raspberry Pi, and this is how the communication is going on, right? So this is the process. Anyways, let me quickly go uh, to the next slide. So what is the next slide all about? So the next slide is all about. Okay, yeah. So the next slide is. So somebody asked me like, sir, I'm not willing to see this black screen. Can you show me the normal desktop of this Raspberry Pi? I'm not comfortable in this writing commands on this. I just want to go change my Wi-Fi settings and do all those stuff as I do on my normal Windows operating system, right? So these are some of the steps to configure that. I wanted to show you now the screen of my Raspberry Pi. How does it look like, right? So these are some of the steps. I don't want to go into the detail because I am not sure if anybody is following what I'm doing, if they have a Raspberry Pi board or not. But yeah, if you follow at home or if you follow in your offices, you have to enable a VNC. VNC is a software. You just have to enable VNC in Raspberry Pi. So once you are logged in to that Raspberry Pi, here, right? Once you are logged into that Raspberry Pi, you have to just go into these advanced options in the Raspberry Pi, and these are the steps by by which we can actually reach to that, right? And then you have to first enable with this black screen only. You have to first enable with this black screen. So that's why you have to download a. So these all are related, right? So you have to enable this black screen. Or apart from it, if you have a screen, if you don't want to do all these things, what you can do is you can just connect your Raspberry Pi to a screen. You getting my point? I mean, you have a screen which has a HDMI cable. You connect your screen, your computer screen to that HDMI cable. So you can see there is a HDMI port. This is an HDMI port. So if you just connect your screen, your computer screen to this will again show you the computer like screen, like that is a Unix based system, right? But I don't want to connect. I don't have extra screen. I just have a desktop. I just have a laptop, and I don't want to connect. I don't want to make any wired connection with this Raspberry Pi. In order to do that, and in order to access that screen, I have to do these settings. And in order to do these settings, I have to install Putty. I have to go to that black screen once. It's just once in a while. I mean, once when you are starting with the Raspberry Pi. So it's for the first time, right? You have to enable these options. So these are some of the settings inside this Raspberry Pi. So you see, if you write this sudo raspi configuration config, if you write this command here, right? So you will see these options. I don't want to go into that because you just have to follow step by step, right? But what I'm doing, I'm actually enabling this Raspberry Pi to have a remote connection, to have a remote desktop. So this is what this slide is referring to. Okay, anyways, so this is one step, and this is how you are actually enabling the resolution of that screen. So these are some of the steps, right? And then let me try to show you now. Okay, so now my Raspberry Pi, I've already done all these steps so that we can save some time in this session, right? Okay, so now my Raspberry Pi is configured. It has a Unix based system. I've already shown you that. Since it is connected to this, it means it has a Unix based system. It has a Unix operating system. we have configured that Raspberry Pi with a network, with a network or a hotspot network, what I have created. Third step is, now I want to see this Raspberry Pi as a desktop on my screen. So I am just enabling it for a remote connection. So when I'm saying I'm enabling it for a remote connection, you can also access that from your home. Right? But it required some extra settings, which I tried on my phone, but somehow I don't know. So what you can do is you can actually, okay, so let me first show you the screen. Then we'll talk about how to access it from your remote places, right? So how to do that? It's a very simple step. You have to download and install this VNC viewer, right? So it's just something VPN, something like VPN or a remote connection software. So once you install that, you type the IP address of this particular device, and then it can be accessed, right? So let me try to show you that how to access Raspberry Pi remotely using VNC viewer. So this is my VNC viewer. I'm sure you can see it on the screen. Okay, so this is a VNC viewer, right? So let me try to write the IP address. So what was the IP address? I think the IP address for this is IP address. I can actually get it from a mobile phone, but we have already written the IP address. So the IP address here was 192.168.43.215. So this was the IP address of this particular Raspberry Pi. So 192.168.43.215. I think it's 215 only. Yeah. So let me just click on it and see. Yeah. So this is the screen which is now appearing. So what it is asking for, it is asking for the authentication. So what was the authentication for this Raspberry Pi? The username was PI, as I've already told you, and the password was Raspberry. Right. So we have already typed these passwords. So let me just click on it. Okay. So here is my screen. So this is my screen of my yeah. So yeah. So okay. So why I'm not able to do? Okay, let me just quickly check why I'm not able to access this. So there is some. Okay, let me get here and let me reconnect that. Let me reconnect it. I'm not able to. We should disconnect. Yes. So let me reconnect. So let me reconnect it and let me see if I can see. So somehow I don't know why I'm not able to access this. Yeah. So but yeah, you see, this is the screen of this Raspberry Pi. I don't know. Somehow I'm not able to access it. Uh, okay. Anyways, I don't know why I'm not able to access this from my mouse. Yeah, there is some problem. Yeah, I can access this, and yeah. Anyway, some problem is there. I don't know why I'm not able to access this. Maybe a problem with VNC. Okay. Anyway, just wanted to show you the screen. So this is how it looks like. You see, this is my Raspberry Pi board. Yeah. Let me do a full screen. Yeah. So the screen which is visible to you is not my original laptop, not my desktop. This is the screen which is visible to you. The screen which is visible to you is of this board, right? And how you are able to see this screen? You are able to see this screen with the help of this hotspot connection. This Raspberry Pi is being connected to this hotspot, and this VNC is also connected to this hotspot, and you can see this screen. So this is the Unix screen, right? So you have all the functionalities, whatever are there on your normal operating system, right? See, you can see the Bluetooth sign on top, on right top corner. You can also see the Wi-Fi. I don't know why I'm not able to access this somehow, but if I would have access, I can show you. And then definitely all the files and folders, you can access your browsers, you can log into YouTube, you can log into Google, you can log into whatever you want to, and you can do the normal functionalities which you do on your normal operating system board, desktops or laptops, right? So this is the board what is visible to you on your screen, this board, Raspberry Pi. So this is how it looks like. And you can definitely do whatever Python programming or whatever programming, C programming, C coding, whatever you want to do, you can actually do with the help of this. So am I clear here so far what we are? I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm not able to access this board somehow. I don't know why, what has happened to this, but it was working, but somehow it is not working now. I don't know why. But anyways, you get the feel. Once you do this, you will be able to uh, understand. I mean, you will be able to follow. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, so this is how it looks like. So uh, animal. Okay, I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, let's move ahead, right? So definitely we are not going to use this further. So we don't need. Just wanted to show you the demonstration of how does it look like, right? Okay. So now this is one way of uh, connecting sensors and collecting. Asking to change the default password. Yeah, Vishal sir, yeah, I don't know why it is asking to change that, but when I'm clicking on top of it, it is not but earlier it used to, I mean, I used to get access of this, but some problem is there, I don't know. But anyways, let's not waste time on this. This is just to demonstrate and to give you some feeling that there is a board, and that board is connected to network, and we can actually see that board from our screens, and this is how it looks like. Just to get the feeling, if you follow the step by step procedure, you'll be able to reach to this. So now if we want to change the Wi-Fi settings, you see there is a Wi-Fi sign. Once you click on this, you will see all the Wi-Fi which are available in this room, right? So you can connect to any Wi-Fi, and the board will automatically get configured automatically. So you don't have to type in those files which we have actually put it in that image folder when we have actually installed the image on top of this Raspberry Pi. So I think that's it. That's the first part of this session, that how to configure our Raspberry Pi. So this is the screen of the Raspberry Pi. So let me quickly go to the next part. I'll just close this. I don't want it to go into the detail. Yeah, but by the way, I would like to suggest also, or I would like to comment here that you can access this board remotely from your Android phones also, right? So this is my another Android phone, and I've installed this VNC viewer on this phone. I've installed this VNC. So you can see, I can see two Raspberry Pi boards as was visible here, as is visible here. You see these two boards. I can see on my Android app also. You see there is a VNC app, and you can install, and you can actually click on this app, and you can actually use this from your remote location, since this is connected to the network, right? Because I have the network connectivity also. I'm using this hotspot, and this hotspot is connected to the internet through these mobile channels, mobile towers. So you can actually use, so this device is also going to the cloud, but maybe because of this some network issue or some internet connectivity issues, I was not able to access it. But yeah, somehow you can actually try doing that, right? So you can actually remotely access this Raspberry Pi from your location using an Android app or iOS app. I don't know if there is any iOS app. I just tried on the Android app. So getting the point. So what we have learned so far, and what we have actually seen so far, there was a robot. On top of that robot, there was a Raspberry Pi. There were some sensors. So we have configured that Raspberry Pi. We have seen that Raspberry Pi desktop. How does it look like? It's a Unix-based system, right? And now what we can do now is, we can, any sensor which is connected to this Raspberry Pi, we can collect data by typing either C code or by typing either a Python code, and then we can actually process that information onto the network or to the cloud, right? So that is what we have learned. So let me quickly go back to this slide. So for recap, so this is what we have actually seen, right? So these are the sensors. I'll show you the sensors. So right now, what the demo was for? The demo was for enabling this local processing, local storage, and networking, so that my sensor data can go to the internet and for subsequently to the cloud and the cloud storage. So this is the overall picture of IoT, Internet of Things. So you see, these are the steps what we have just now covered, what we have seen. Any device, Raspberry Pi can act like this, right? I know you, it will be more clearer when you do hands-on. So, but yeah, this is how we actually do start building up something, start building up things, right? So you have seen a nice video which has a nice robot. I mean, it was very attractive to me at least. And but these are the building blocks, right? These are very simple building blocks which we can actually design on top of it, right? Okay, so this is what we have seen getting started with the Raspberry Pi. Now let me quickly show you how to interface Raspberry Pi with a Matlab, because nowadays Matlab is very easily available, right? Although I'll say that Python is open source and is very easy to do, but just wanted to show you also, because many of us are familiar with the Matlab, that how we can actually interface Raspberry Pi with the Matlab, right? Okay, and then I'll show you how to collect. Okay, let me go to the slide. So yeah, these are the slides which we have seen already. Yeah, so this is the window which we have seen, I mean, about this Raspberry Pi, right? So we were actually at this particular slide. Okay, so the next task is, so this was the one thing, this is the one objective of this lab session: how to how to get familiarize ourselves with the Raspberry Pi board, and how to visualize that, how to see the screen of the Raspberry Pi. Now the second portion of this will be connecting a sensor to that Raspberry Pi board. For this particular lab, I am using a camera as a sensor, and then looking out how that camera will actually process that information to our Matlab. So what are the points which we are going to learn now in the next couple of minutes? So connecting Raspberry Pi using Matlab, using Raspberry Pi to connect with the camera, collecting real-time snapshots, and collecting real-time videos, and of course performing a face detection on a captured video. So these are the functionalities which we are going to use with the help of a Raspberry Pi. Okay, so what I'm doing now is, so interfacing Raspberry Pi with the Raspberry Pi board with the Matlab. So एक बार वापस से let me go back to this slide so that visualization is clear. ठीक है? So now what I'm going to do is, I have a camera here. So this is the camera. Okay, let me just erase this all. Okay, so it will not erase. So now I have a camera. I have a Raspberry Pi configured. You have all seen that. I'll connect this camera to the Raspberry Pi, and I'll send this data. I'll send this image data. I'll send this image data to Matlab for further processing. Yeah, because Matlab is a very great tool to process data, right? So that's why I'm just using that. So this is my idea. This is my objective now. What I'm doing, I'm using this camera. I have the configured Raspberry Pi, and I'm sending that image data to the Matlab. That's what I'm going to demonstrate. So for you all to see, this is how it looks like. So this is a configured Raspberry Pi board, and this is a camera which is actually enabled. So this is the same camera what you can see on both the robots here, the screen which is displayed to you. This is the same camera, you all can see that, right? With the Raspberry Pi board, right? So this is a camera. So I have a camera. This camera will collect data, collect information, and which will be collected by this Raspberry Pi, and over a network it will send this data to my computer which has a Matlab on it. So this is the objective, right? So let's see how we can actually proceed with that. So this is the next objective of this session. Okay, so this is the same uh, functionality. I mean, this is the configured board what we have seen in the previous session, and on top of it what I'm doing is, okay, so where is that slide? Let me show you that slide. Yeah, let me put that slide on top. Yeah. So now what is the target? I have a configured Raspberry Pi board, and here is the camera. This is how it looks like, right? And this is what was actually put up on that robot, on both the robots, what we have seen previously, right? So the objective is to connect this to a Matlab, which is already there in my computer. Okay, so let me now connect this to a power cable. So we have, you see, we have everything here. We have a configured operating system micro SD card, and now we have also connected a camera on top of this Raspberry Pi board. So let me now just give it a power. What I'll do, I'll just give this board a power, and I'll just keep it somewhere. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just connecting this to a power cable, my mini USB, and I'm just connecting this to a. Okay, so this is how it is ready. Let me now show you how I can actually connect this to a MATLAB and how you can actually capture images. Okay. Okay, so this whole system is ready now. This is now ready. So I've actually plugged in a power cable here. So here is a power cable, and everything is already pre-installed. I mean, we have seen, we have already installed, we have already configured this. So now this is a wireless board, and wirelessly it will send the images right over to that same hotspot network, right, wirelessly. So there is a hotspot, and it will be visible to me on my laptop, which on MATLAB, right? MATLAB I'm using. You can use Python also. I mean, you can use anything. Uh, I was comfortable in MATLAB, so I just used that, and there were a few very simple codes which we can actually run on MATLAB. So I'm just demonstrating. By the way, you can actually use any language what you want on top of this Raspberry Pi also. Unix may, if you want to collect these images using Python, you can do that. If you want to collect images using C, C++, whatever you want to use, you can actually use that. By the way, right? I'm just using because I was just convenient. It was convenient for me, so I was just using that. So this is the objective, right? I'll show you the collected images, real-time images on that MATLAB. Okay, so these are some of the steps. So these steps I have just put it here so that in future, if you refer to these slides, you can actually follow. So what we have to do is, I have already done this in order to save some time during the session, right? Otherwise, it will take a lot of time to install all these things. So what you have to do is, let me open the MATLAB as well. Try to show you. Okay, so you see, if you open the MATLAB, now the prerequisite is this is already ready, right? I've already shown you that, and now this is connected to my hotspot. You see, this is connected to my hotspot. So this is Raspberry Pi board, and the IP address of this board, yeah. So it's already connected to that hotspot, right? So you can see, I have a Raspberry Pi. Yeah, so this is a connect. There is a connection, right? So you can see the IP address of this Raspberry Pi board with the camera enabled. With the camera enabled. Now I'll access this Raspberry Pi board from my MATLAB. Let's see how to access that and how to collect the images. So what I'm going to do now is, so this is a Raspberry Pi. This is the MATLAB. You go to this apps uh, tab here in MATLAB. I'm sure you all are familiar. Yeah, we will share. I will share the slides. Definitely, I'll share the slides. Yeah, surely. Yeah, I'll definitely share the slides. Just surely, because in order to rebuild the whole system, you might require these slides, and the slides are very much. I mean, step by step procedure is followed, right? Okay. So, but for the time being, let me demonstrate you so that you can follow it later, right? So MATLAB में जाएंगे, apps पे जाएंगे. So what we have is we have to actually install this Raspberry Pi. So once you write this Raspberry Pi on in here. Yeah, so here you will find a Raspberry Pi resource, right? So once you click on this Raspberry Pi board, what it will do is it will actually do some configurations. So this is the next step. I mean, what I'm doing right now is I'm right now configuring Raspberry Pi in my MATLAB now. So we have configured our Raspberry Pi separately. That was a different step. And now what I'm doing is I am now trying to configure Raspberry Pi so that it gets interacted with this MATLAB. You're getting the point, right? So that's what these are the steps for that, right? So if you go ahead, we'll see once you click on this Raspberry Pi board, you will see something like that, screen like this, right? So you see, I have already installed this in order to save time. Yeah, so it's showing already installed, right? But when you start it for the very first time, this will not be installed. You have to install this in your Matlab, right? So what this process will do, yeah, so when you follow the steps, you have to click on manage, and then you have to actually do some processing, what it will ask you to do. You have to select which model of Raspberry Pi board you are using. You have to go there, you have to select that, and you have to actually click on that. So my model was Raspberry Pi model B. So this is a Raspberry Pi model B, so it's written on top. If you see this Raspberry Pi, there will be the model number will be written on this, right? Yeah, so this is Raspberry Pi 3 model B, this Raspberry Pi. So that's why I've selected this, that. So once you go, these are some of the steps which definitely it will ask you to do. Yeah, so here is the uh, image. Right now you see what it is doing is it is actually creating another image, right? So you download this image. So Matlab is now creating an image for your Raspberry Pi which we have installed previously, right? So that was a how to configure our Raspberry Pi. Now this Matlab is again generating the image, so that it is, so that your Raspberry Pi is compatible to that Matlab, right? So you download this image and you burn this image in your Raspberry Pi again. You have to burn that image again, right? The same process what we have followed previously. Of course, if you want to connect to the wireless network and all those things, you can just do those settings in your Matlab. So how these pictures are coming, how these setups are coming, from where they are coming when you will actually install this Raspberry Pi. If you go to this apps tab and if you search for Raspberry Pi, and then you definitely, it will ask you to follow some certain steps. Those steps are basically to install a Raspberry Pi image in your Raspberry Pi board, right? So you have a SD card, you have to install that image now in your Raspberry Pi so that it gets compatible with your Matlab, right? Anyways, I have done that, and the steps how I have did that is what I am trying to show you. I think these are very simple steps. You can actually follow that, but the basic aim is to install this image, whatever image it has created, in order my Raspberry Pi to be compatible with the Matlab, right? We have to burn this image, right? So this is how we actually burn any image, right? So once you download this image, you have to burn it. Where you are burning in a micro SD card, which is actually here, this micro SD card यहाँ पे डालना है. We have to put this micro SD card here. We have to burn this image here. So in order to burn that, you have to actually plug into your computer with a card reader, and then you have to put that your this micro SD card in your card reader, and then you have to burn that image, right? So how do you do that? So yeah, so this is how actually you will burn the image. It'll take some time. It'll take somewhere around 20 minutes or 25 minutes to burn that image, right? But I don't want to do that. So considering the fact I've already done that for this session, and I've already burned this image in my Raspberry Pi, which is connected to this camera. So this SD card, what you are seeing here is now the SD card what I have just now downloaded from the Matlab, right? So this is what is having. It's also a Unix based system, but it's compatible to the Matlab. This image is compatible to the band. That's the whole purpose. Otherwise, more or less, both the images are almost similar, right? You can also do it manually. If you already have that image, you can also do it manually. There are a lot of manual steps also by which you can connect your old image to this Matlab, right? But since this was a simple step to start with, uh, I actually chose this one, right? Okay, so now what we have is, again, we have a Raspberry Pi connected. We have a Raspberry Pi with a camera on top of it, and now we want to see how this Raspberry Pi is wirelessly transmitting the images. So this, you see, I'm not connecting it to any Ethernet or any devices. It's wirelessly connected, right? So it's wirelessly connected to this hotspot. Okay, let me show you that. Let me see if we can see the images. So for that, let me show you the steps. Let me go here first. Okay, so these are the steps. Now everything is ready. My Matlab is ready. My desktop is connected to this hotspot. My Raspberry Pi is also connected to this hotspot, and Raspberry Pi has an image which is compatible to this Matlab, right? In order to collect the images from that. So that's the point, right? So these are few commands which I'm going to type it in a Matlab in order to show you the Raspberry Pi board, whether it is connected or not, and to enable a camera which is installed on top of that Raspberry Pi, right? So there are these are the two simple Matlab commands in order to do that, right? So what are those commands? Let me type it in Matlab window. So my Pi is equals to a Raspberry Pi. So okay, so an active connection is already exist. Okay, so we already have an active connection. So you can see I've just now typed this, and there was a connection with this Raspberry Pi. So you see the IP address of this Raspberry Pi which is connected was okay. Let me go to the slide first and show you. So what does this command will do when I type this command on Matlab screen? It will create a connection and my Pi from the Matlab software to a Raspberry Pi board, right? So it will establish a connection. So my Pi will establish a connection basically, right? So if I just so right, so what I'm doing is a my Pi is now a object, right, which I have created for this Raspberry Pi, right? What Raspberry Pi? Which Raspberry Pi? Just now I have configured that Raspberry Pi. So what is the IP address of this Raspberry Pi? When I actually enter this command, I can see that this is the IP address, right? And in order to confirm this, let me try to show you whether this is the same IP address or not. So this is the same IP address. Let me just show you in my mobile. So yeah, so you see, so 192.168.43.145 is the IP address which is connected to this hotspot and is also visible on this MATLAB screen, right? And there's a port number. What is the model of this board? Is a Raspberry Pi 3 Model B. As I've already told you, we have selected that model. And then definitely we have available digital pins. I've shown you what are the digital pins, that is general purpose input output pins. We have a I2C communication. We have a webcams also, we have I2C bus speed, and we have LEDs also. So these are the specifications, right? So this board specification is this way. It means it is being connected, the Matlab is being connected to this Raspberry Pi board, right? So that's the idea basically. Anyways, let me quickly configure the camera for you. So how to configure the camera? This is the command as was visible here. So create a connection to the camera. Now I have a Raspberry Pi with a camera. So you see this is a camera here, right? So you can see the camera. So this same camera was there on the robot, right? So how to establish a connection with this camera? So I'll give this command and I'll show you whether it is connected or not. So let me just hit this and okay, already exists because I've already clicked on that. So it's already exists there. So we can see, right? So you see these are the camera properties. So what is the resolution of this? 1280 into 720 is the resolution. This is what these all things, these are the parameters which you can always change, right? So you see, by the way, what I passed in here is, so camera board is a object, is a function which is already there in that Matlab app what we have already installed. So everything is there in that. So we just have to use those commands, inbuilt commands. I'm just using inbuilt commands in the Matlab and just want to show how does it look like. So MyPi was the object of that Raspberry Pi. So here is the MyPi, right? You see, this is the MyPi. So I've just used this function camera board in order to enable this, in order to enable the camera of this Raspberry Pi, which is on top of that Raspberry Pi, right? So it's already there. So now let me try to collect the images, right? Let me try to collect the images. So this is the slide, and then we have, okay, so how to capture a snapshot? So there is a function called snapshot which is already there. It will actually capture the snapshot for me, and the cam was the object of that camera. Just now we have created a cam object by calling a mypi object. We have initiated the camera, so it will create a snapshot. So let me show you a snapshot, and then we will capture the video. So what is the video? Video is a collection of snapshots basically, right? If you just continuously take snapshots, you can see your video, right? So I've just loop in. So this one is a loop basically, right? So what you can see here is, so this is a loop basically, is a for loop for this snapshot, right? Okay, so let me show you how does this look like. Okay, so let me show you here. So now this MATLAB is connected to the Raspberry Pi. This Matlab is now able to access the camera of that Raspberry Pi. Now, what is important is to capture a snapshot. So let me click on this and let me see if I can connect. Let me check if I am connected to this. So you have to be connected to the hotspot in order to make sure that this Matlab is working. So I'm just checking my connection. I don't know if I am disconnected to this hotspot or not. Okay, I cannot see that. Let me quickly check the. Okay, let me see if I am connected to this. Okay, I'm connected. Okay, let me reconnect to the hotspot. Okay, let me reconnect to this hotspot and let me restart the Matlab again. I think there's no problem. Let me restart the Matlab again. Stop and quit. Okay. So in order to get this running is I want to connect my laptop to this hotspot. So I'm just facing some problem in connecting to this hotspot. My computer is facing some problem. Let me just resolve that. So that is what I'm trying to do. And meanwhile, I'll also let me open my Matlab simultaneously. So meanwhile, in the meanwhile, if anybody has any doubt or any question, if anybody is not able to follow, I can quickly recap. Or are you getting what we are trying to do here? Okay, so let me just see if I am connected to the hotspot. If okay, let me check the IP address. Yeah, it shows two devices are connected. Let me create this. Okay, you need to disconnect now. Let me just see if why there is a problem. Okay, so now it is connected, and Pi is also connected. Okay, so now the Raspberry Pi is connected. Let me go. Okay, so these are the camera properties, and let me try to capture any image. So this is a command to capture image. Yeah. So this is how the image basically look like. Anyways, let me just, yeah. So this is the image, and let me first run it and see. Okay, so you see it has actually captured this image. So what is this image? I have just kept my Raspberry Pi here. It is just capturing any random image. So let me now try to show you something in front of this image. In front of this camera, let me try to put another Raspberry Pi and capture another image. Let me see if I can capture a snapshot. Okay. Okay, so it has captured, I think, another image. But okay, so so now since it is working, let me try to show you now. Okay, so what I'm doing is I have a Raspberry Pi with me, I've configured it for Matlab, right? As we have already seen in the previous slide. Now I have a camera on top of it. Now I'm creating a connection to that Raspberry Pi from Matlab, and then I'm accessing the camera of that Raspberry Pi with the help of this command. And now I have shown you how to capture a snapshot, right? Now let me just put it in a loop and show you how we can actually capture a video. So let me, so I've already, so where is that? I think this is the loop here, right? Or you can just put it a loop like this, right? So there's a looping a captured snapshot. So let me just try to uh, run that command and show you how it actually captures a loop basically. So where is that? Okay, collect and detect is a function. Okay, so here is the video you see. Yeah, so what is this all about? This is basically showing my desk now. This is showing my desk now. I'm having a cluttered desk right now because there are a lot of wires, a lot of devices lying here. So this is another Raspberry Pi board which is lying in front of this camera. So now this is actually going in a loop basically, right? So let me try to lift this camera up and try to show you my image if it is possible. Yeah, there will be a delay. Definitely there will be a delay because of the network connectivity issue. So I don't know if it is going around. Seems like it is working. Uh, yeah, so this is actually going in. I think I have just run the 100 loops or something like that. So collect and detect is a function which I'm running for around 50 times, I think. Yeah, 50 times I'm running this. Anyways, let me rerun this. Let us wait for this to stop. Let me rerun this. Okay. Okay, so how in the meanwhile it will stop collecting images, it will stop the loop. So in the meanwhile, what I have shown you right now is uh, we are trying to collect images from that Raspberry Pi board, and we are trying to see those images in our desktop, which is having a Matlab on top of it, right? Of course. So what I'm using right now in this Matlab script is a very small script. It's doing nothing. It's just doing a snapshot. It's collecting a snapshot. So this is a function already inbuilt. So what we have done, we have actually used the MyPi Raspberry Pi as an object for that Raspberry Pi. This is a camera in order to connect to that camera. And there is another function called a snapshot, which is actually using that CAM as an argument. So here is the CAM which is used as an argument. So I'm passing this as an argument and I'm trying to collect a snapshot, right? And then what I've done is I'm just collecting these snapshots and I'm trying to display that in a loop. That's what is a video will look like, right? Somehow it is actually it is still running, but somehow it is let us finish, let it finish first. Okay. And then apart from it, what I'm doing is I'm actually using a computer vision Matlab library in order to detect my face. I would have shown you that in the script. Let us let it first end that script and let me show you. So what I'm doing is I'm just detecting a face also. So what is the problem now is, so in the video, if you remember, in that video there was a girl at the end of that video, and you can see that image was detected or the face was detected, right? So that is how we are actually trying, that is what we are trying to actually build that, right? So we have a Raspberry Pi. On top of that Raspberry Pi, we have a camera, and the camera is actually collecting videos and is also detecting the face that was there in that particular video. So that's how we have actually built that system. So these are basically a computer vision library. So there are some functions which are already inbuilt in Matlab. So we are just trying to use, thanks to the Matlab functions and all, we are just trying to reuse those functions. And I'm just trying to show you the detected faces. So this is another function which we have just written. It's a small function, and in that particular image, so whatever image we are taking as a snapshot, I am actually inputting that as an argument, and it is actually detecting the face from that particular image. So let me see if I don't know why it is not. Okay. Somehow it is going in a loop and it is not exiting. Yeah, that's these are the problems which we actually face when we actually work with the hardware. Uh, Somehow the connectivity issues are there. Somehow the data is not going properly. So these are some of the issues which we need to cater when we actually work with the hardware, right? Overall, yeah. So this is the idea basically. So what we have tried to learn is we have tried to learn the configuration of Raspberry Pi, and then how to actually collect images uh, from the Raspberry Pi board, and in order to display that image on this Matlab. I was just trying to show you that, but somehow it has uh, it's not displaying that. But anyways, so that was the second part, by the way. We all can try. I mean, you all can go back and you all can try the scripts, whatever they are. You can see whether it is working or not. Meanwhile, let me just go ahead and show you what we have in the next thing in a couple of minutes. I think I have only 10 to 15 minutes, but still one whole thing is remaining. But anyways, let us get a feel of that. And so the third part was interfacing sensor using ESP8266 using MicroPython. So what we have seen different flavors here in this session. First is how to configure the Raspberry Pi, how to configure Raspberry Pi for Matlab and see the images as was there in that video, capture the image and detect the faces in the in that uh, particular image. And the third part will be to interface or to explain you how actually we can connect a sensor to this ESP8266, which is much smaller than Raspberry Pi, using a Python as a language, right? I am not going to the detail, but I'll just give you a demonstration. So you see, this is okay. Let me once again check the Matlab. Okay, it's not topping, by the way. Anyway, let me just terminate this. Anyways, let me just terminate this Matlab. Okay, let me come on to the different things. So we have ESP8266, which is Node MCU microcontroller unit development board, and this is a pinout diagram of this board. So I would suggest for those who are actually working on these hardware for the very first time, right? It is very important to see the pinouts, right? So where are the GPIOs? Where are the I2C? Where is the SPI? Where is the UART? Which is the PowerPoint? Which is so this is how it looks like, right? So you see, this is how it looks like. It's a very small board, right? It's a Wi-Fi connectivity. A very small board is there with you. So what is the target is? So in the video we have seen this ultrasonic sensor, right? So this is ultrasonic sensor. So what I'm doing is I'll just demonstrate you. I cannot, since I'm running short of time. So I'll just demonstrate you and you can just follow my slides, which will actually help you. So by the way, how does this ultrasonic sensor work like? So this is like a transmitter, so it will transmit the ultrasonic waves or sound waves, and if there is any object in front of it, it will get reflected, and this will be received. The reflected wave will be received by this receiver which is there uh, on this ultrasonic sensor. You can see the hardware looks like this. So this is a transmitter, this is a receiver, right? And so, and again, you have a VCC, you have a triggering which will trigger this transmitter wave, and the echo will be it will record the received signal, right? So once we have a transmitted signal and once we have a received signal, we will actually count the timing between these two signal, and we'll divide that by two, and we'll find out that, and then we'll convert that time into the distance, right? That's how we actually see that how far is the distance, how far is the object from this ultrasonic. So this is how is ultrasonic sensor works, right? So this whole functionality we have to map in a Python. Let's say, for example, right? Let's say, right? So I understand that I am using different flavors here. First we have used Matlab, and then we are using Python, right? So it's like you can actually mold everything in any sense. So that's the idea, right? So how to show you that, right? So just a quick demonstration. Otherwise, I would have actually explained you the Python code also for that, but don't want to go into the detail. But yeah, a quick demonstration of how we can actually use this. So you can apply this simple circuit. So you can apply this simple circuit. So this is a simple circuit. You see, where is the circuit? This is a circuit. Yeah, so this is a simple circuit which you have connected to this board. You can see this, right? So there are 4 wires because there are 4 pins, and it is, yeah, we can surely we can give you the recorded session. So these are the 4 pins, and this is a board, right? So what I will do is I'll quickly connect this to my laptop, and I'll show you how this sensor is actually collecting data with the help of a MicroPython. You know? So let me show you, right? So okay, so we have already seen a Raspberry Pi, and so here is another board, ESP8266. I'm just giving you a flavor to start working with these boards and play around with these boards. If you have any doubt, you can come to me. You're always free to discuss. We are always welcome to email me, or you can ask me. Anyway, so which is the tool which I'm using to do that? So yeah, so this is a UPy craft, right? So it's a UPy craft which I'm actually using. So this is a Python basically. This is a Python script what I am writing, and the Python script is nothing. It is what it is doing is it is actually enabling these 4 components. So a transmitter, basically the transmitter is being triggered by this triggering pin. If you give this as an input, right? If you trigger this pin, so what is the triggering is you just have to give an on or an off, right? So an on or off signal you have to give in order to trigger, in order to make this pin trigger, right? So once this pin will trigger, it will start transmitting this ultrasonic waves, right? And then you have to control the echo pin also. So you have to write a function in Python or maybe in C, whatever you want to write in, wherever you want to write in. You have to write the function of this triggering pin, you have to write a function for this echoing pin, and then you have to calculate the distance between these two, right? From the time what you have received, I mean the transmitted pulse and the received pulse, and based on the time between them, we'll actually find out, right? So that is the Python code all about. So that is the Python code all about, and let me quickly show you and then I'll end this. Yeah, so this is what I have just now explained. So these are the functions in Python written already, how we trigger the triggering pin and the echoing pin, and how we collect the timing between the transmitted pulse and the received pulse, and then we divide it by 2 in order to find the distance, and then we use the simple distance formula, speed is equal to distance upon time, right? So speed of the sound wave and then distance and time we can do, right? And yeah, so this is a quick connection. Let me connect this. So the COM5 is the port where this board is being connected, and if I just run this. Okay, so now you see it is giving me some distance. Can you all see the distance in the screen? So what it is going, it is giving me is it's giving me the distance, right? So let me just try to put my hand on top of it, then you will understand. It is throwing some garbage value right now, but let me try to put my hand on. You see now, 14 centimeter, 19 centimeter, something like this, right? So the range is somewhere around 20 centimeter. So it is not working beyond that range. So you see, so yeah, so something like that it is giving. Can you all read out so the negative values are the garbage values, but yeah, 11, 14, 12, 61, right? So this is how basically we use these hardwares in order to uh, put it on robots. So yeah, this was another session, although I thought of explaining you this in detail, but since we are running short of time, you can follow my videos and you can see. Yeah, so this is how we are actually running. So what we have seen so far is okay, let me stop this. So this is a demonstration of this. Yeah, these are the files, these are some of the snapshots which are there for that. So maybe let me quickly go back. Let me also try running Matlab once again, if I can show you that. Yeah, anyways, so meanwhile I'll go.
Yeah, Ankush sir.
Yes, sir.
I think it's time to take a few questions from participants and
Okay. So I think yeah, I'll quickly wrap up. So yeah, this was the robot, and we have a camera on top of it, and then we have a ultrasonic sensor. So the sensor will collect distances, and the camera we have already seen how it actually works. So I think I'll stop it here for the time being. We have a short time, and definitely it requires uh, Yeah, I mean whenever we work with the hardware, definitely it requires a lot of time and a lot of things to, but yeah, definitely. So that was just a small demonstration as to uh, how on robots we can actually collect data from sensor, and how that is related to internet of things. What are the different steps and basic building blocks of our whole system what we are designing for. Yeah, so I think over to you, and if there are any questions, maybe I'll be happy to take that up. So I understand that it is very difficult to follow hardware when you don't have hardware with you. But certainly, since we are doing in a virtual mode, you can try the slides whenever you get time and whenever you have the hardware with you. So any questions, if you have, you are most welcome to ask that. We can, I think recording can be given to the participants, I think, Amit sir, right? We can share the recordings. I think we are already
Yes, sir.
recording. Yeah, we'll
It,
share the
it
link with you, sir.
yeah, it will be shared, and YouTube link will be created also.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll have the
So,
videos on YouTube, or some link will be shared.
yeah. So because we are running short of time, so we we have to stop this session because I think there is one question in the chat box.
Yeah,
If you could
Deepak sir
answer.
is asking, can you suggest some links for the further detailed understanding? Yes, sir. So uh, Raspberry Pi, if you want to configure Raspberry Pi, sir, I would suggest there are a lot of YouTube videos. If you can follow them uh, in order to design your prototype. And apart from it, if you just want to go for these small projects using this ESP8266, and I think there are a lot of links, something called as random nerd tutorials or something like that, right? We have a lot of videos of MicroPython, because what I have used in this is a MicroPython. So there are a lot of projects. If you just type on Google MicroPython and ESP8266 and Raspberry Pi also, you will get a lot of links, and you can just use them and you can start building on your own system. So I think YouTube videos. There are a lot of YouTube videos, and there are a lot of good sites like uh, MATLAB Pi package we can download. Yes, yes, sir. You can download if you have the authenticate version of MATLAB. Certainly, you can download. It will come with the package. I mean, if you have a licensed version of MATLAB, then definitely you can download Pi package, and you can install and you can start working. So that's what I did. We have a licensed version in our college, so I just tried to install that Pi package in MATLAB, and then you can quickly start working. So I think that is a simple way. If you have a MATLAB at home, I mean, if you have a licensed version, you can burn your image from there, and you can put it in your Raspberry Pi. Yeah. So I think if there are, Amit sir, if you,
Yeah. Participants, this is all for this session,
yeah.
and you can always approach Dr. Ankush Vasisht in Triple IT Kota if you have any further query. We all people are always available. And Ankush sir, because you are the host, so can you stop the recording, please?
Okay, I'll stop the recording, sir. But once there is one more question: how to interface the Pi in mobile? Yes, sir. So I have actually explained that very in a very short manner in my video. So what you can do is you can actually enable your Raspberry Pi uh, for the remote desktop, right? So you can use a VNC as a software for doing that, and you can install the app of VNC. So this is a VNC app. You see, I have a VNC viewer in my mobile phone. So once you log into this VNC viewer, you can see all the Raspberry Pi boards available here. So you can interface this Pi from your mobile phone. So that's one way which you can do, sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
I
Yes.
think I would like to thank all the participants for patiently listening to me and sparing their time, their precious time for 2 hours continuously. And thank you so much, Amit sir, for inviting me and for allowing me to speak here at this platform. Uh, so Last but not the least, I would like to thank the ATAL for sponsoring this program. And thank you so much. Thanks a lot and have a nice day, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir. So can I just end the meeting, sir, as you were
No,
suggesting?
no. Please do not end the meeting. Please stop the recording.
Okay, sir.
Stop the recording.